Good day and welcome to a quick overview of the Transtheoretical Model for Change, an assessment and intervention process with thousands, yes, thousands of well-designed research studies proving its effectiveness in changing errant behavior in clinical settings and promises to have that same impressive effect in the schools. Let's start with a question often heard in our IEP meetings and professional gatherings. What could be the reason that a research-proven or evidence-based intervention works wonderfully with one dysocial young person, but fails to positively impact with another learner? Even our powerful procedures and programs that you see here, along with a lack of fidelity and consistency to the plan, could the old common sense adage that you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, be pertinent in addressing this question? The trans-theoretical model expounds this view when working with individuals in need of positive behavior change, but would this clinical model be applicable to children and youth in educational settings, especially those students whose action and reaction patterns violate school regulations, classroom decorum, and personal comfort and safety of oneself and others? We're talking about our students with persistent acting out behavior response patterns. When we refer to externalizing behavior profiles, we're speaking about the children and youth who may or may not, depending on the circumstances, qualify for the federal educational special needs category of emotional disturbance, or the DSM and ICD diagnoses such as oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder, intermittent explosive disorder, or disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, but certainly do display pronounced and persistent acting out behavior patterns that concern school personnel. Behavior patterns described by one or more of these descriptors. A number of my colleagues come to mind, but I digress. The trans-theoretical model, so called because you can continue to adhere to your favorite intervention model, ABA, cognitive behavioral, social cognitive, social ecological, psychoeducational, whichever, and it intertwines nicely with any and all of them. In its standard form, it's a stages model with movement into each stage being dependent upon success in the previous stage. The trans-theoretical model identifies the stage of willingness to change one's maladaptive ways and provides the general avenue of approach for advancing the individual to the next stage. In a school sitting, you or the IEP team would plug in preferred strategies that match the focus of those recommended approaches in order to promote advancement to the next stage of motivation and readiness to change one's errant ways for the better. At any moment in time, most of us exist in the pre-contemplation stage. We have our habitual ways of addressing recurring situations. It takes something quite significant to shake up our world and give rise to consideration of other views and ways of doing things. We are, as they say, creatures of habit. Now, imagine if I asked you to change your political views to opposing positions, exchange your religious practices for those of another belief system, or replace the holiday traditions that you celebrate with your family with the ones observed by my kinfolk. Odds are you'd continue on with your standard practices. Even considering changes in the contemplation stage is quite an undertaking. Perhaps the benefits of change are now recognized as being superior to those received when showing the present reaction pattern, or maybe the person reaches rock bottom, so to speak. with the present behaviors and finally realizes that those actions are blocking access to a better life. Actually, sketching out a plan for change is a monumental step. Making the decision to undertake change despite the effort that will be involved and the possibility of failure is a precarious position into which to place oneself. Leaving behind those deeply ingrained automatic habitual ways is nothing to minimize. Humans show behaviors because there are benefits to doing so. If there wasn't a payoff for displaying our actions, we never would have adopted those behaviors in the first place and then kept them. Leaving those responses behind when they're now stimulus response type reactions, mechanical in nature, and now responding differently to recurring circumstances is a difficult undertaking to say the least. It is a bold move to attempt to change one's ways given that the present actions have been a significant part of one's life, integral to it. Maintaining that new response pattern is a tenuous endeavor at best. The allure of the past response patterns is Lorelei-like, threatening to crash one back up onto the behavioral shoals. The replacement behaviors feel awkward and ill-fitting when they're first attempted, and their clumsy displays may not bring about the promised benefits at this point. In the standard clinical version of the Transtheoretical Model, relapses are to be expected and refer to a return to the original aberrant behavior pattern. While witnessing periodic relapses are an expectation for we mentors, we expect that perhaps the student will backslide once in a while. To the previously enthused individual, the setbacks can be demoralizing. Failure can destroy one's motivation to continue to attempt to metamorphose oneself. So taking these stages and relapse phenomenon into account, this is how the system operates. Our team's research is indicating that there are two types of relapse or backsliding. The original model's relapse back to the original behavior status, and smaller slipbacks to a previous stage before engaging in the upward progress. But with the proficient implementation of stage-aligned interventions, we will see advancement through the stages. However, like we said before, it's not uncommon to see minor backslides or major backfalls. So, how do we motivate our students with errant actions to move forward to higher levels of engagement in the behavior change process and then solidify those new ways? Progressing through the stages of change is dependent on a triad of determinants. The first, processes, are those general approaches into which we can plug our preferred interventions, if and when they match the nature of that approach. Interventionists, that's us, must also be aware of which processes are indicated for which stages of the model. We'll address that alignment in a moment. Second, individuals must possess a firm belief in themselves, self-confidence known as self-efficacy, the belief that they can continue to be successful in their behavior change attempts. Our support helps them develop this trust and confidence in oneself. And third, making a conscious choice to move forward based on success due to our well-designed and implemented support and the resultant self-assurance that emerged. To promote behavioral success, the willingness and readiness to move upward in the behavior change process to that final goal, interventionists must use different approaches, different processes for different stages. This table lists 9 of the 10 processes or approaches for promoting positive behavior change. It seems that consciousness raising was left off the list. Consciousness raising involves creating an awareness of acceptable pro-social behavior that would replace the unacceptable, at least unacceptable to educational situations, the unacceptable response pattern. Each of the processes are assigned to a singular stage of change. And here they are, 10 processes, a tensum of general treatment approaches as they're aligned with a particular stage. You see them here in the rows next to the stages, both above and below, and color-coded to match the stage for which they're indicated. If these strategies in the outer rows are used at any other stage of motivation and readiness, they would be ineffective and perhaps counterproductive because they don't meet the needs of the individual at that point in the change process. Using the Transtheoretical Model as it applies to schools, we prescribe the building of positive student-adult relationships for the pre-contemplative or pre-contemplative stage, and the use of encouragement and identification of the benefits of changing in the contemplation stage. Role-playing of the replacement behaviors would be appropriate during the preparation stage. Oh, and that positive student-teacher relationship, it's important at all stages. We build it, we maintain it, we strengthen it. And no matter the evidence and the research proof behind a particular intervention, it will fall short of success if it belongs to a process designated for a stage other than the one in which the student is situated. We have the greatest and perhaps sole chance to positively impact the target behaviors when we implement strategies aligned with the processes associated with the learner stage of readiness and willingness to change. With success due to our support and provision of correctly aligned interventions, the individual's self-confidence builds. That enhanced self-image and self-esteem, that belief in oneself that we call self-efficacy, that leads to undertaking and accomplishing the next tasks involved in the behavioral advancement. Indeed, success and self-efficacy co-construct each other. Decisional balance is especially important at the early stages of the model, but it's still present later in the change process when deciding to take this newly learned skill into a different setting or use it under different circumstances that are perceived to be more threatening and challenging. We put our finger on the scale, so to speak, with our stage-aligned interventions that are designed to tip those scales toward the side of deciding to move to the next stage or further along within the present stage. One approach that is especially important in the early stages is engaging in mentor-guided instructors with the changer, the learner, that address the pros and cons of each choice. Now, note the orientation and direction of the arrow moving through the quadrants. There's a psychological phenomenon that applies here. We tend to remember the last topic discussed. In this case, it's embedding the benefits of change into the mind of our focused learner, our changer. So, what does all this mean for those of us in the schools? Here's our general plan of action. Via our knowledge of the model and the assessment instruments that our research team has developed, we ascertain the learner's stage of readiness to change. And then we identify the processes, the general approaches that are aligned with that stage. Selecting preferred interventions that align with those processes is our next task. Those of you who adhere to the ABA model will implement different strategies than professionals who abide by one of the other theoretical orientations. However, no matter which theoretical orientation you hang your hat on, the prerequisite for success is a positive adult-student relationship. And following up on an earlier point that was made, our research team has developed an assessment and intervention package that allows you to address the first three steps while then adding on the remaining components. And you can contact us at the addresses that you see at the end of this video if you're interested in perusing them. And if you're intrigued by this model and desire more specifics on how it would be applied to the schools, well, we have two more videos for you. The first has more detail than the one you're listening to now, and the second longer one is used for professional development sessions. It's complete with activities. We are excited about our research thus far, and we continue to research the trans-theoretical model's impact on positive behavior change in the schools. So we're wondering, would you like to team up with us to make a big positive difference in helping intervention-resistant kids make better behavior choices in one or more of a series of investigations that promise to change and improve the ways that our field intervenes with those children and youth? A number of benefits accrue to those educational institutions that join us in contributing to the professional body of knowledge. We have a tall stack of gift cards to award to our partner schools. We'll donate a copy of my self-help book for intervention-resistant learners with externalizing behavior patterns. And for those schools that participate at a significant level, I am more than pleased to conduct a professional development session on one of the topics you see here. If you'd like to join us and get on board with us, please make us aware of that interest by contacting us at one of the addresses you see here on your screen. Thank you for watching our video and considering our offer.